So before the video starts, I would like to apologize. The video kind of cuts out halfway through because I disconnected from the internet because of technical issues. I think I'll talk about it a little bit later on in the video. Additionally, some of the information is a little bit outdated due to Shooting Stars changes, but this Moonkin Monthly was recorded on Monday, so I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope you have a great video. Hello everybody, we're back again with another Moonkin Monthly. I'm Tettles, Wowhead Guide Writer, head of balance. These are the clowns. Introduce yourselves, clowns.
Alright, special guest start. You both introduce yourself. Soreanan, go ahead.
I'm Soreanan from Wildcard Gaming, formerly known as Easy. That's all I got.
Hello, I'm Colix from Pieces.
I fucked up the cams, hold on.
I,
Alright, we're good. Alright, continue on.
who are you, Tettles?
I'm Tettles. I already introduced myself.
Alright, I'm Nick Druid from Aversion.
From Aversion. DE
Mhm.
Anexia. Alright.
DE Anexia.
Anybody got any shout outs? Anybody got anybody that they want to shout out?
Big shout out to Goosey. He couldn't make it, unfortunately.
Shout out to FadeX and David Q.
Fortunate.
Alright, so we're going to start with the class overview. How do we like how the class is designed and moving thus far? So personally, I actually like a bunch of the systems that they've been implementing, whether it's the Eclipse system. The removal of Stellar Empowerment was also pretty good. So the Eclipse system, I'll start with that. I think that's good RNG. It's healthy RNG for a kit. I thought OI gating all of our movement behind OI procs and Stellar Drift was pretty problematic as a whole. So Eclipse is like an intermediary RNG like mitigator, but at the same time it like breaks up our rotation from literally spamming Solar Wrath like we saw earlier on in the beta. What do you guys think about Eclipse so far?
So just to like inform anyone, Eclipse is the new proc we have, right? Where you
Yes.
whenever you like cast Solar Wrath, you have a chance, 20% chance to get a free Lunar Strike empowerment. Overall, I think it's great to see some more RNG in our spec. I would like to have OI instead of that, but I'm fine with the new Eclipse system.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's good.
personally, I think it found a really healthy balance between like it feels really good when you start getting procs, but it doesn't feel as terrible when you're not, which is really nice.
And I don't really feel that's like it's not really a big RNG factor. I don't feel like you're gonna be mad when you don't get procs. Like it's not that big of a deal. It just like makes the rotation a bit more smooth. So I definitely think it's like a healthy thing that they added to like make the spec like not Raz Simulator what it used to be. So.
Do you think that we don't have enough like spots for Eclipse procs? Because currently at 3, I think the issue is we don't have enough. Like we're able to cap Eclipse too easily. I think, and the empowerments themselves, I think just cap too easily, especially whenever you have 100 astral power, because it like really doesn't really let you double surge ever. So what do you guys think about that? The Eclipse number? Do you think that they should increase like your cap on Eclipse, or what?
No, I don't think so. I think that would that would remove the whole part of empowerments, because then you're just gonna have basically always have all empowerments, and then you might as well just make it a passive. Like you remove the entire mechanic if you remove the cap, because sometimes you're just gonna have like 8 stacked up and you're just gonna only spam empowerments, and it kind of ruins the niche of the passive.
I mean, but what if you increase the
Yeah.
cap to 4 instead? Because then it punishes you less for double surging for mobility, but at the same time it allows you to kind of pool them for like bouts of whenever you need it to, without being like extreme, like you said, pooling up 8 or whatever.
I think you could just up it to like a maximum of 4 empowerments. I don't see a real issue, but just help us more with movement. I think there's a better approach to fix our movement issue currently.
Yeah, I don't think it really would change that much movement wise. And like I said, I think it's also too minor to like actually make a big deal about. I think if you make it to 4, I don't think you're actually going to see it if you has increased most scenarios. Like, but I think movement in general is like, I think it's still better than it was at the start of Legion. So I think it overall like this like a big positive change if you compare it to like the start of Legion.
Okay. So what do we think about the removal of Stellar Empowerment? For those who don't know, Stellar Empowerment was the thing that buffed your dots whenever you had a Starfall down. They decided that the system was a bit out of place, and they decided that removing it was a better option. On the flip side, they buffed our dot damage, so Moonfire and Sunfire on the base do hit a little bit harder. So what do we think about the removal of Stellar Empowerment as a whole?
I would say it's overall pretty good change. We asked for it a lot of times, cause it's really hard to fix our spec or balance our spec, which with Stellar Empowerment being in our kit. So with the removal of Stellar Empowerment, it should be way easier to fix our spec and balance it correctly.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like it's almost impossible right now to balance it. Like our dots do like literally no damage right now if you don't have Starfall down. So any like council fight where the targets are like spread out, you're almost useless as Moonkin. Like if you can't have Starfall down on like all the targets, I think like having the dots actually deal damage is way healthier for the spec than having it stacked on your Starfall.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Starfall is still gonna be good.
Yeah. Just helps us in council fights where you like literally can't hit anything.
Do you think they were too good on 2 targets though? Because they changed Solar Empowerment to cleave in like a small AoE radius. Most of our abilities still cleave, so the only really change is that we don't Starfall on 2 targets, but a bunch of other classes really got their AoE hit pretty hard. Do we think that we're too good on 2 targets though? I mean, personally, I haven't been able to like really test to like see if we're that broken, but like from just like the eye test, it looks like we're too strong because all of our abilities really cleave. And like with the removal of Stellar Empowerment, we don't lose too much. Yeah, we don't lose too much on 2 targets.
I don't think so. I don't think so, because like you said, we're using Star Surge now on 2 targets, so which is supposed to be like our big damage ability, and it's a single target completely. So
but you're talking about like patchwork, 2 targets, basically?
Yeah, I mean sustain 2 targets, so like realistically like a Covenant dog style fight.
But I mean on dogs, like your Lunar, your Solar Wrath would do almost nothing unless you stack them up the entire fight.
That's true.
So I definitely don't think it's like an issue at all, and I don't think it like I haven't played that much around with it, but I like from what I've seen, the Solar Wrath AoE damage is like really not that high. So I mean I don't see it like ever being strong, because you're like Sir said, like your spender is still by far the biggest damage dealer I mean it won't be on 2 targets, but I don't think it's gonna make you OP.
Okay, yeah, no, I understand. Okay, so do you think we might be the best class whenever it's stacked 2 targets then? Because like all of our abilities cleave, even though we're not using Starfall.
I mean, I think if they tune the class correctly, we should be one of the best. But I mean, it's Blizzard, so it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I hope we are one of the best if it's 2 targets that we can stack on.
So okay, so they decrease the power of our spenders of Star Surge and Starfall, and increase the power of Lunar and Solar Empowerments. So personally, I don't think this is very healthy for us as a whole, just due to like it doesn't feel as rewarding now to be able to cast like Starfall or Star Surge, but at the same time they did need to do something with empowerments. Do we think that they handled it correctly by kind of nerfing down our spenders and buffing the empowerment damage, or do we think that we would have liked to have seen something else, or like what are you guys thinking?
I definitely don't think it's a good chance because they're nerfing or they're nerfing like insanely hard or priority target damage. So if they can add spawns and you need to kill it, we're gonna be almost useless. Like on very matches, we're actually decently strong right now. Like we're not the best, but we can definitely handle the ads. After these changes, we're gonna be a lot fucking worse. I also think like it punishes our movement a lot more because relying on spenders doing damage means you basically always have to cast. Because yeah, So I definitely don't think it's a good change for like the balance of the spec.
Yeah, I think it's overall an issue, hurting our movement too, with the pre-patch. Because, like as you said, you're not able to cast double Star Surge that often anymore, so you actually end up like not being able to move that much anymore, and you obviously don't run into your Starfall all the time because that build is dead. So I don't know. It's not a best change. It's actually like I don't like the change at all. Just bad in my eyes.
So we can segue.
Yeah, it doesn't feel great.
Okay.
It doesn't feel great to like cast Starfall, Star Surge anymore right now.
Mm-hmm. So like segueing into mobility off of that, because you guys kind of hit on it. So we're generating less AP, so we have way less instant casts, and then most of our mobility is gated behind Stellar Drift and Starfall, which isn't really usable on single target. Do we think that our mobility should be like this, or do we think that we should be like more like a Frost Mage, where we like have a lot of instant cast abilities that we use a bit more frequently, or have a little bit more power over? Because like spamming Moonfire, spamming Sunfire on the move is like a huge damage loss. So I personally think that our mobility is like really lackluster, especially in comparison to all the other casters. I feel like it was a bit more unified in terms of like all the casters had like similar amounts of mobility or whatever, it'd be fine. But as it stands right now, it feels like balance is kind of getting shafted, especially with how it was really out of line in Legion, to be fair. But now it seems like they've been a little bit more heavy-handed with the nerfs and like aren't allowing us any mobility. So like, do we think that it's too much, or do we think that we just have the correct amount of mobility, or like where do we stand on that?
I'm pretty okay with the mobility we have. I mean, you always want more mobility, but I mean, if you compare us to like Dash Sherlocks, I think we're not like in a better spot than that mobility-wise. And I mean, we have more mobility than we had at the start of Legion, because you're not going to play with the alt nature balance, so you're going to have more globals and dots anyway, which gives you more movement. Overall, I think we're fine. Like I think EN, for example, I think our mobility was actually okay. Like we could deal with all mechanics without losing too much DPS if you knew how to play. It definitely makes the class a lot harder. Like the players that aren't like as efficient with like moving, like star stepping, and knowing like what damage they can soak, what damage they can't soak, without like risking anything. You're gonna do a lot less DPS. But if you are actually like really good at the class, I don't think you're gonna have like a big issue on most fights.
Okay, yeah, no, I definitely see where you're coming from, but at the same time, we don't have, like, realistically, you're not able to move unless you need to move. Like, if you're only able to move once every 7 seconds with an instant cast, which is only like a second and a half max of movement, which doesn't seem like a lot at the same time though. So, and then you're not really able to pool as efficiently because of the reality that you'll probably cap on Eclipse procs, and you might be able to like fuck yourself if you overcap. So I don't know. To me, it seems like it is a bit much, though, even though you think it might not be.
I think you can just like not care about the Eclipse, though. I think you're at some point you're just not going to care about how many stacks you have. You're just going to always stick around like 60 Astro Power.
I think you're better off running Stellar Drift if you're going to have that much if you're going to have that much, though. Like realistically, you're probably better off dropping a Starfall and literally running through the Starfall for the whole duration if you would rather just say fuck Eclipse procs, right?
Probably, yeah.
And it depends on where Stellar Drift comes out, because if Stellar Drift is only like at whatever, like 3 or 4% behind Twin Moon and Stellar Flare, then it might be worth, and then you just drop Starfalls at your own discretion in terms of movement, because you shouldn't be dropping them like as frequently. You just drop them at your like whenever you have to move for the, like most of the duration of the Starfall probably.
Yeah, I actually have no clue how good that actually is. Like how much DPS do you lose by dropping a Starfall here and there, having Stellar Drift?
Currently it's about 4% loss, but then you have to factor.
Actually not that much.
It's about it's about 3 to 4%, but then you have to factor in the damage lost by casting Starfall itself.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like how much worse is Starfall than Star Surge? That was basically the question I was asking.
I don't know. I know it's barely a damage gain on 3 targets.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like right now, it's like pretty close. You know, on 2 targets, it's like already worth by far to cast Starfall. Whereas if it's like barely a gain on 3 targets, I'm very skeptical of it ever like being a viable option on like a single target or even like semi AoE fight.
What would you think about something like Trilliax though, where you remember the beam in the middle where he would like spin around in circles over and over again? Do you think that it would be worth taking on something like that where you're literally moving for like 20 seconds?
It would probably be worth it.
Out of space or beast, yes. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have any movement and you end up like losing a lot of damage to like not casting anything on movement, it's probably worth it. Just cast like 1 or 2 Starfall in that phase.
Yeah, I guess it really comes down to how much value you're actually going to be able to get out of the Stellar Drift as opposed to what the value that you would get out of the Stellar Flare or the Twin Moon. Okay, so segueing in, what do we think of the playstyle now? Do we like the changes? Like so we're generating a lot less astral power, so we're casting a lot less spenders. Do we think that that's better? Do we think that's more fun? I personally preferred the moons being like baked into the base spec. It kind of breaks up the monotony of our single target rotation, which is what I think they were going for with the clips, but it really, I struggle to differentiate Solar Wrath and Lunar Strike realistically. They feel like the same spell, just recoded, recolored, and whatever else. What do you guys think about our playstyle now?
I actually enjoy the Legion one more, like compared to the less spenders, more builders right now. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. I don't like the change. It's fine though, I guess.
Yeah, I like Legion more, but like it could be worse. So
I mean, yeah. If you like look at that build, it's like I think that's like super fun. I understand it's like a completely broken concept. Like it should never be allowed. You should never be allowed to play that spec because it just means that your spec is broken. But I think it's a lot more fun, a lot more challenging, a lot more to min max. I'm also like someone who loved the old ED playstyle. So I mean that's basically only spenders. So I mean yeah, I definitely don't like the builder being so much stronger.
Do you think old ED playstyle was equally problematic though, in terms of like, so it would fuck you on high movement, but you'd be fine on like low spurts where you could like stutter step your way? But do you think that was problematic in the sense of that was too many instant casts, or do you think that was like a healthy style, or like what do you think? Because obviously keeping up the buff is one thing, but like how much mobility you were gaining just from instant casts is another discussion, I think.
It's definitely not healthy. Like I mean, you're gonna be toxic to the entire fucking raid having that helm. But it's so much fun, and it's so it was so strong if you know how to play with it. And the movement, like you could even like often like there's very little fights where you have to move a lot very often, and most of the time you can time like the windows of your ED that you're like almost gonna finish your ED anyway. So like you had to drop it after a certain point, and if you just move like when that point happened, you almost didn't lose any DPS. So even if you have to move for 10 seconds, the amount of DPS that you lost in those 10 seconds is almost neglectable compared to how much you gained when you could just like turret with ED. So I mean, I think the ED is pretty broken in that regard, but your raid leader is not going to be happy if it was there. That's
Yeah, definitely agree. I enjoyed the old ED. I got it like pre-Nighthawk, but it definitely was way more fun compared to right now. I love the old ED.
ED was fun, but it was toxic as hell. You think of like Star Augur and you get a Star Sign, you're like, okay, you come to me. I'm staying here. Sorry.
Colix, is that you?
No, that's something I just disagree with in general, because I don't think, especially in Star Augur, like, I mean, unless you're talking about like phase 3, I think it didn't matter what you did, so you could just always move. And even when you have ED, like you can move so much, like you had like 20 seconds to do the star signs. I think it was 20 seconds, maybe it was even more. So you could always get to the other side of the room by just stutter stepping during your ED. So on that fight, I don't think it's necessarily the case, but there's a lot of fights where it is just completely toxic.
I'm pretty sure it was like 10 seconds before it was nerfed.
Yeah. I don't think it was 20,
but I mean,
I'm not sure.
I understand your point. Your point still stands.
You can cast like 4 or 5 star searches in those 10 seconds, which is like 5 seconds of movement. So I mean, yeah, that's 5 seconds of movement is quite a lot.
Okay, so are our talents too weak? Okay, so So just laying this out here for everyone. Whenever you talent zero damage gaining abilities, zero damage gaining talents, you only lose 17% of your damage. Additionally, if you talent full AoE, you're only losing 9% of your maximum DPS. Do we think that our talents are too weak in that regard? Personally, I think that our talents are a bit weak and our base kit is a bit strong due to our empowerments, especially whenever you put it into this realization that we really don't gain much damage. Looking at other classes, Shadow Priest is right about 30%, Enhance was right at 28%, Legion Moonkin was at 25%. So do we think our talents are too weak at this point? Would we like to see a buff on all of our talents and see a nerf on the base aura?
Yeah, I would enjoy if our talents would be a bit stronger compared to our base kit, because that means you actually need to make some decisions on your talents, some encounters, instead of running something and it doesn't really matter anyway because it's less than a percentage of DPS loss.
I think that's the biggest issue. I don't really care about the overall damage of the talents. I care about the fact that some talents should be significantly better than other talents in different situations. So, for example, now if you look at Twin Moons instead of Drift, you were also already talking about it. The difference it's gonna be, it's gonna have on let's say 2 targets or 3 targets. It's gonna be not that big. So I think that's my biggest issue is I think the talent should be impactful in different scenarios. I don't care about them doing a certain amount of my damage on a single target. Or even.
So I think it also becomes big issues for Mythic Plus whenever your talents are that close, because they balance a lot of different classes differently. They're with Shadow Priest, their top simming AoE might actually be 15 or 20% damage loss compared to their top simming single target, right? Whereas Moonkin is oh, I can just play what, it doesn't really matter what I play, and I'm only losing 15% damage, or actually I'm only losing 9% damage, right? Even if I'm playing the worst single target setup, period. So with Mythic Plus being a legitimate end game, I think that becomes really problematic. That our talents really just aren't worth a shit.
I think the biggest issue is that, or CA, our cooldowns are just garbage. We have a 3-minute cooldown, and it's weaker than most classes' 1-minute cooldown. I think that's disgusting.
Yeah.
And absolutely, it's retarded. So, like you said, our base kit is too strong. I think we do too much base damage, but I think we should have more impactful cooldowns, or they can literally just make CA 1.5 minutes, and the class would be better because the cooldown itself isn't that strong. It's just actually garbage. They should just nerf our base damage and buff CA, or reduce the cooldown of CA.
But what do you think about Fury of Elune and then the tier 15 Force of Nature and Warrior of Elune? Because those aren't huge cooldowns or anything, but they are pretty big damage gains.
I'm insanely happy that those are viable. That those are viable options right now, because I really like having cooldowns that you can use.
Yeah, so I mean, realistically, you're just going to take all the burst damage you can, especially if all of the talents are that closely competitive. The burst damage options are always going to be superior because, for one, most of them are drop and forget, Fury of Elune and Force of Nature. You just drop them, you just walk away. It's whatever, and then it's a lot easier to get all the damage out of it by comparison, because right now Fury of Elune is within 0.3% of New Moon, but if you ever cancel a cast, you're losing that value from New Moon. It's it's not going to be worth playing. You're just going to drop the Fury of Elune every minute or pool it, and as long as you don't lose a usage, then you're getting full value out of it, right?
Yeah, fuck moons, to be honest.
Yeah, moons are really not that good.
I didn't even like the moons. I would have been happy if they were gone. But that's just me.
I mean, I don't mind them. They're fine, but I don't see them in BFA ever going to be good.
Yeah, if there's ever a chance as a second target, there's ever a chance you have to move, basically Fury Link just becomes better.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to segue into what do we think about the systems in BFA. We'll start with the Azurite system. So looking at other classes, Moonkin has some pretty insane Azurite traits, not just Lunar Shrapnel, but was the Moonfire one Promises of the Moon or something? Streaking Stars looks ridiculous too. What's this? The Solar Wrath one is pretty good too. So what do you think about the Azurite system as a whole? Do we think that's a good replacement for Tyr? especially when it's like
I have,
farmable from.
I have a big issue with the SL twist system, which is that it's so passive. It's literally just some random procs most of the time, unless we're talking about streaking stars. That's like the only one that's somewhat interesting to me. And anything else is just plain as boring. It doesn't replace the tier system at all.
I don't know though. If you look at tier 20, it's pretty passive as well. But
I mean, yeah, we had some tiers which were like super passive, but it's still like boring in my eyes.
I think the Azure system in a whole is like the best system they've ever made because I think they can do so much with it. Like it's the concept of this system is fucking amazing. Like it's actually sick because they can literally do whatever with it what they want. I think the first tier is very lackluster, and I hope they expand on it. That's all I can really say about the because I do agree with Nick that the ones that are skirting there, it's like, okay, I'm getting a % damage here, % damage there, but it's like, yeah.
Do we think that they should be gameplay impactful changes though? Like, do we think that they should be minor changes, or would you like to see them as like a subsidiary of talents?
I would like to see them as talents, like as legendaries. I think that's like the best way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
So I mean, okay, so in my mind, I think they should honestly have diminishing returns as well. Like you shouldn't be stacking 3 out of 3 of like just whatever the best like top summing trait is. I think you should be like 1 trait is like 100%, 2 traits is like 70, like the second trait is like 75%, and then the third trait's like 50%, like stacked on top. So you like really have to. It would promote you getting like 3 separate traits, but at the same time you could get 2 traits fine if the trait is that strong, or if you need the trait for that situation specifically.
Yeah, I kind of agree because stacking free traits seems super problematic in some cases. It seems like you're going to run into some weird situations where just free trades just creates a really weird scenario in your kit.
I mean, you could already see that in I think it was in the alpha. There was a trait for marksmanship hunters that would literally making spamming arcane shot the best thing that was there. So you literally all you would do was spam arcane shot, just because it was a trait that buffed arcane shot. So you'd like one arcane shot would hit harder than like an aim shot, and shit like that like does happen, and they need to tune against that. But then by tuning against that, is making the traits even less impactful. So I think they kind of fucked up with ideas behind these traits because they're like buffing they're buffing generators, which I think is an issue because by buffing generators you're like decreasing the value of your spenders. And then you can't really make anything strong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure currently if you get free power immune traits, just even ignoring the Twin Moons bug, spamming Moonfire on 2 targets is better than Star Surging. They do almost the exact same damage.
I could definitely see that, especially since we're not starfalling on 2 targets. Like, so you'd probably just spam Moonfire, then like fill with Solar Wrath, like just fill your empowerments, and then just continue to spam Moonfire. I could definitely see that.
You Star Surge whenever it's up, but outside of that, you literally just spam Moonfire.
I guess we found like the 3rd time they fucked Moonfire up like GG.
I mean, I'm seeing it. It's going to happen.
It always happens. It's happened already. We literally were spamming Moonfire.
They don't learn about it.
One expansion, like.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, that was an oversight.
Like the 3rd time they're gonna make Moonfire spam the best thing that's there. Like, I mean.
Yeah. So we've all done raid testing, I think. So what do we think about the new raid? How do you think Moonkin fares in the new raid? I think we've all done raid testing, haven't we all?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think so.
So what are you guys thinking about Uldir? How do you think we're faring compared to like other range specs, like all the classes? Like, what do you think about our class? How it's designed? Do you think it'll be good?
I think we're
variable in.
I think it's going to be fine.
Yeah, I think it's exactly. I think it's we're not in like a bad spot. I think I mean, it obviously depends on tuning. If they're gonna tune us like with the worst single target class in the game, like we are right now, I think it's gonna be an issue. But if they actually like make tuning okay, our kit is fine to deal with the bosses. I don't think we're the best range by any means, but I think we are definitely competitive enough to be used in basically every scenario that's there.
How do you think we're looking on Gahoon? Because like personally, I think we look really good on that fight.
We do look really good, yeah.
Yeah.
We can do. I mean, You can probably put a Moonkin up on the upper platform and just let him handle most of it. Else we have pretty good priority target damage, and I would say our AOE is fine too. So I could see him
I
being
think
useful.
I think the very important part is going to be like the second and last phase. I don't think first phase is going to be that big of an issue. So I think first phase damage is like pretty irrelevant. Second phase, there's like it's mostly single target, and it's a lot about burst windows. And those burst windows are once again shorter than 3 minutes, which is an issue for us. Which I think a lot of classes are going to pull ahead of us in that regard. And also the last phase is going to be a big burst. So at least one of the burst windows, we're going to do almost nothing. Where there are other classes that will have cooldowns for every single one, every single burst window. So in that case, I think we're not that good. But I mean, like you said, we do have niches on that fight that we can exploit. So I don't think, once again, I think we're fine. We're just not the best.
Okay, yeah. So what do we think about the Mythic Plus changes? So I know they've gear locked Mythic Plus, which is, I don't know, an interesting change for sure. Additionally to that, they've nerfed. Okay, so this isn't like direct Mythic Plus changes, but they've nerfed Moonkin survivability to a point where it's like Bear is not enough as a singular cooldown, and Barkskin's pretty bad too. So I mean, personally, so I do a lot of Mythic Plus. I'll speak on this first. I personally hate the fact that you get locked into gear and locked into talents in Mythic Plus. However, I do think Moonkin will be pretty good in Mythic Plus, especially if they're locking gear and locking talents, because Lunar Shrapnel is, one, just ridiculous. Exponential damage scaling on Starfall and Moonfire is just absurd for AoE. So you'll lock into that, like, triple Lunar Shrapnel almost 100%. And then additionally to that, you'll play some like probably hybrid style, more AoE favored style, especially if we're not losing that much damage on single target. So if we're balanced for raid, then our Mythic Plus play will be a bit ridiculous in my mind, especially since they have changed like all these systems. But like, what do you guys think about the systems that they've changed? Do you think that they're the correct move, or do you think that it's like not correct?
I haven't played a lot of Mythic Plus, but I think I'm kind of speculating here, but I hope they've kind of learned something from the Legion Mythic Plus they had, that where one-shot mechanics were like the only real lock to like make a timer. So like so I hope they like kind of fix that, so you don't have to have the fucking Prideess and trinkets to survive certain mechanics. I mean, like I said, I don't know if that's the case, but if that's not the case, then I think that the not swapping gear is an okay change. For Moonkin viability, I don't really know a lot about Mythic Plus, so I'll leave that to other people.
Yeah, I haven't done like not many Mythic Plus yet on the beta, but I think the change they made to Mythic Plus could be fine, but I can also see them fuck up everything and Mythic Plus being like super boring in the first like tier or something.
I think a lot of it depends how much of our abilities are baked into the Azeroth traits. Is really just how it's going to turn out.
I personally think that they accidentally like lucked into a good system in Taurus, because so in my mind, damage, like your ability to do damage should outskill the ability to be like one shot. So like completing the key with like good strats and good pathing and like good damage should outweigh you getting like one hit by like bullshit mechanics. So like Titan Guard and Ishkar's Fellshield Emitter kind of mitigated that to some extent. But like in how it's looking in Legion is they still have spiky damage intake, which is concerning, especially when if you're locked into your gear, you're limited to like what you can really wear for over the course of the whole entire dungeon, which concerns me to like really big extents.
Yeah, definitely agree.
All right.
I have one more point or question.
Yeah, what's up?
Like also something that I have a concern of with all the changes they've made to like especially DK. I think you can pull, and also like CC. I think you're going to be able to pull a lot less than what you can in Legion. Like pulls are going to be in general a lot smaller. Or do you disagree with that? Or and if that's the case, don't you think that Moonkin loses more than a lot of other classes?
So from the looks of things, it looks like the pulls will generally be smaller just because the mobs themselves have a lot of different abilities, and the fact that they've pretty much removed kiting in general makes it almost so that you're not able to like over pull as you were in Legion.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the point. My point.
They've
But
also
don't you think
yeah.
that the Moonkin kit is bad around that because of your 3-minute cooldown, your 45-second cooldown, silence, like everything is based around big pulls. Is what I would say. I mean, you're still going to do okay damage on other pulls, but there's other classes that can just pop off on every pull.
I think that's yet to be seen. I haven't. So from what I've seen, is Moonkin has a lot of consistent damage through Starfall and through Lunar Shrapnel. So it's hard for me to actually gauge like where I would place Moonkin in like a more serious sense. As of right now, it seems a bit ridiculous damage wise, but that is because Lunar Shrapnel as a trait is not balanced at all. So I can't tell you. Okay, so we are going to move on to talents, everybody's favorite topic. So we'll start with the tier 15 talents. So tier 15 is basically like a secondary resource generation row. So it's got Nature's Balance, which gives you 2 AP per 3 seconds. Warrior Loon, which gives you 3 instant cast Lunar Strikes, which deal an additional 40% AP. And then we got Treants, which taunt mobs, give you 20 AP instantly, and then melee the mobs. My favorite talent, greatest talent. So personally, I think that their secondary generator row is pretty decent. The fact that the Treants and Warrior Loon are both cooldowns to some extent is also like kind of appealing to me because Force of Nature, the trees, give you a lot of like burst single target damage, whereas Warrior Loon kind of lets you pull it for mobility and pull it for hybrid fights. Do we think that they're healthy for balance? Do we like that there is 2 like rows of AP generation as opposed to the singular AP generation row of Legion?
I mean, theoretically, Legion also had 2 rows. Like I mean, Star-Lord was also.
I mean, I guess by technicality it gave you more AP, but it wasn't like a pure generator row, right?
Like the only one that didn't give AP was Force of Nature, and they kind of fixed that here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that Warrior Loon doesn't like go on cooldown when you use it, which makes it really like annoying to use because you kind of.
All right, we'll start back with tier 15. We'll start from the beginning of tier 15. So I was talking about Warrior Loon and Force of Nature. So at a minute cooldown, Force of Nature seems pretty good for priority target damage. Warrior Loon is also at 45 seconds, like pretty good for like cooldown wise. Even though most people don't think of them as like cooldowns, they're like minor cooldowns. Do we think that these cooldowns on the tier 15 row are like pretty good for balance? And then like what do we think about Nature's Balance as more of like a secondary resource generator? It's more of a passive generator thing. Even though it generates more AP, it's not taken because it's like a little bit worse. Like, what do we think about this row as a whole?
I mean, I really like us having like the first 10 cooldowns, and I do really like the part of their cooldowns, but I don't like Warrior Loon and the fact that it doesn't go on cooldown until you use all 3 charges. It's like kind of lame.
Yeah, I agree with Colix on this. I think they should probably do something about Force of Nature. I'm assuming it's going to be outscaled really, really quick due to gear and stats and such. Yeah, overall, I think it's a fine row compared to the other one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the mobility row. So what do we think about the GCD changes on Wild Charge and the introduction of Tiger's Dash? Because Tiger's Dash is pretty good for uninstance combat, so like world questing, leveling. Tiger's Dash is pretty good for that. Do we think it really has a place in raid and dungeon environments though, or do we think it's like a per fight basis or like a per dungeon basis? Like, so personally, I think Wild Charge is always going to be the go-to, just because on a 15-second cooldown, you're able to like move really quickly and like, even though it is on the GCD and it kind of sucks, it's like you're able to get from point A to point B with like relative ease, even with Wild Charge. So, do we think there's any place for Tiger's Dash really?
I 100% agree there. I think Wild Charge is basically filling in the niche that Tiger's Dash would, because I mean you replace Dash with Tiger's Dash, which basically tells you I want to move quicker than 70% or 100%. How much is Dash? 60%. I want to move quicker than 60% to like another place, but only in like a short amount of time. which Wild Charge already does. So you're basically removing your other mobility to gain an ability that you already have in a different choice. So I think Tiger's Dash in raid environments is almost never going to be picked. There might be some niche scenario where it's just slightly better than Wild Charge, or you can't use Wild Charge because you can't like disengage. But overall, I think I'm mostly mad that Displacer Beast is gone, because I think Displacer Beast was just a talent you would pick 99% of the time in any progression raid scenario. Renewal, I think, is fine. I think it should be baseline. I think Balance Druid is kind of sad because we have 0 healing, even though we're hybrid. Like, our regrowth doesn't heal for shit. Even if we pick Rest Affinity, like, we don't gain that much. Whereas if you have a rogue or a hunter, they even they almost heal more than us. Like, they even heal more than us, and I think that's disgusting. That as a hybrid, when you're healing, you do 0 DPS. Everything is on the global, and yeah, you're a hybrid, and you're doing everything less. You don't have an immunity. You get punished for being a hybrid, so you don't get an immunity, and then you can't even heal yourself, or you heal yourself less than other specs. So in that regard, I think it's retarded that we don't have renewal baseline.
Do you think that renewal or Tiger's Dash should be scrapped for something that allows us to like move while casting like sporadically, like something like Ice Flows or whatever? Like Ice Flows like isn't really taken, but it's like they get to cast like one ability for free, like movement free. Do we think that like renewal or Tiger's Dash should have been scrapped for something that's more like class flavored in terms of like, and then you get mobility while casting for that? Or do you think?
Yeah. I think that would be a pretty decent option. In like, if you want to add anything, that's for sure you would add in that row instead of either of those, because I think both of those are almost never going to be taken. And I do think it would be sick if we could have that. Although I don't think we necessarily need it, but to be a par with Mage, I think we do need it.
Okay. So it would just help with our overall movement, especially coming into BFA. Would be something would have been nice, but overall, Tiger's Dash is bad and shouldn't be a talent. At least for us.
I think that's a bit reaching, but I do see where you're coming from. I think it's.
No, I agree. I think Tiger's Dash should not be a talent. I think it's almost bad to pick it because you lose Dash.
I think it should be Feral specific talent, almost.
Yes.
Almost
yeah,
for sure.
I mean, I agree with that. Yeah.
So tier 45, kind of short. Do we ever take anything except for Guardian Affinity? Like they added Wild Growth to Resto Affinity, but like, are we realistically ever taking anything for competitive content that's not Guardian Affinity? Like even with all the nerfs?
Yes, I think Feral Affinity definitely has its place on multiple fights. Even in Legion, it was taken on quite a few fights where the movement was just worth more than the damage reduction, because you could like play more greedy or overall survive more because of the movement. In general, I do think Guardian Affinity is basically baseline the best and is taken on 95% of the fights. I think Rest Affinity is almost useless and only has specific niche scenarios where you might pick it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's some niche situations where you could pick Feral Affinity, but overall, you're always safe going with Guardian Affinity.
That makes sense. So for tier 60, we got Mighty Bash, Mass Entangling, and then we got Typhoon. So I think Druid utility. So this is just my opinion. I think Druid utility is a bit much, especially on this row, because like the ability to, like Mass Entangling in itself is like just either awful or it's just ridiculous. There's no in between. It's either like brokenly strong for encounters, like I don't know if you're doing certain strats on Agrimar, or if like on Coven it was just retarded. Like, and then either it's that or it's just worthless. And then Typhoon is generally your staple because knockbacks and displacements are so like uncommon realistically that you having one is just like always going to be better. And additionally, it stops casts. Like even though we like since we have a minute-long cooldown on our interrupt, stopping casts is like really strong. And then Mighty Bash being a single target interrupt, that's pretty bad as a whole. Like single target interrupts are just not good. So realistically, you're always shoehorned into like either Typhoon or Mass Entangling. But do we think that those two spells by design are just too strong? Because I personally think they're a bit much.
I don't think so. I think they're both fine.
I think they're fine as well. I think they're just good utility that we have as a class, and I think we need that utility to, because we don't really have anything else. And I don't even think it's enough.
Okay. I mean, by comparison to other druid specs, we definitely have the least amount of utility. But yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. I mean, not having an immunity is like a really big detriment in itself. I know I'm leveling an immunity alt. Are you guys all playing immunity alts too?
Yeah.
Yep, mage. Okay, perfect. Glad we're all on the same stupid page.
I'm not playing mage though. Fuck mage.
What are you playing, rogue,
Never,
right?
never gonna play mage.
Hunter it is.
Yeah.
Pretty rogue actually, but yeah.
Yeah, no, they're all really stupid.
Same shit. It's like 3 DPS class, all immunity. You can't really go wrong. Like.
Okay, so we're on the 75 row. So before we start talking about this row is the row of Soul of the Forest, Star-Lord, and Incarnation. All three of these talents have use on single target and AoE. How do we think about the balance of this row? So like Soul of the Forest, we'll start with that. You get 10 AP reduction plus 30% empowerment damage. Do we like the 10 AP reduction on Starfall, or do we think that's a bit much? So like currently in its current state, it's only taken on sustained AoE fights. Just because the ladder is not that great. Would we like to see more single target focused talents on this row, or are we okay with it being pretty good balance wise for Soul of the Forest?
I think I'm fine with Soul of the Forest being more of an AoE talent, but at the same time would like to see something for our single target too. I guess Star-Lord something. I don't know. I'm not a friend of Soul of the Forest. I think it's kind of, just the usual boring talent.
I think Soul of the Forest is like funny because at the start of BFA we never thought we'd ever use it. I mean, start of Legion, and it became like one of the core talents for spec. I think right now it's like it basically holds the same spot as did in Legion, and I'm okay with that. I think it's a fine talent. You pick it like when you want to start all of, and that's. I think the other part of it is almost neglected in a way. And I don't know, they might want to change that or do something about it because you basically never pick it for the single target DPS you get from it. I don't know if that's like a mistake, or maybe they should remove the single target completely, or like I said, make the talent more of a niche, like so you nerf the single target and make it really strong on AoE, or because I like that more.
I mean, they did that in Legion. The 7.1.5 or whatever was that patch, right? Because they buffed our mastery scaling by a ton, and then changed Soul of the Force from giving 10 AP reduction to 20 AP reduction. We saw how that shaked out. Are we okay with that? Like, do we think that should be the correct move going forward? Okay, so Star-Lord. I was just looking at something. So Star-Lord gives 3% haste for 20 seconds per stack, only stacking up to 3 times. And you proc it off Star Surge and Starfall. So right now it's only used on patchwork encounters due to the cost of Starfall realistically, and the competitiveness between the other two targets on that talent row. How do we like Star-Lord? Because it's like a bring back. They brought back tier 20. I think it's frozen again, right?
No.
Okay, okay, never mind. Okay, I was just reading something. Okay, so Star-Lord is currently just not that great by comparison, just by balance wise, but it is. I think it's one of our most interactive talents, and I actually really enjoy playing with it in tier 20. I would like to see it be a little bit stronger, just because I want to see it outperform some of the other talents. Because right now, none of the talents really have a niche in this road. They're all really the same, I think.
I think you're exactly right. I think it's retarded that they basically are all the same because Star-Lord should just be by far the best talent on just pure patchwork, and then I think Incarnation should be reworked. I think Incarnation is probably the dumbest talent we have. I think Incarnation should just be like IFE baseline, or just make CA 1.5 minutes cooldown or anything like that. So you can actually interchange between them, because now one of them is always going to be better than the other one, and there's no situation where one of them is going to be better than the other one, and then the other situation the other one's going to be better, because they're both just increased damage. So, and that's the same with Soul of the Forest. So I think that's like a very big like design flaw that I've done here, because they basically make the talents the same thing.
And in my mind, Incarn, like moving over to that, like it is a staple pick in terms of like what it is for the class. The class has always had that like armored chicken form as long as I've played. So it's kind of, and it looks really cool. So I think it has to stay in the form of like it has to be a talent. But at the same time, yeah, I don't think it should be. I honestly would like to see it separate from Celestial Alignment again, like it was in Warlords, but be like a weaker cooldown, right?
I mean, that fixes the same issue as I said, like making 1 minute or making the separate cooldown. That kind of does the same thing, because then you can use it if you need like different burst windows. That I mean, it doesn't. It's not completely the same, but it kind of helps in certain scenarios. That's for sure. Like it gives it more of a niche anyway.
Okay, so tier 90. So first off, should our movement be gated behind Stellar Drift and Starfall? So Stellar Drift is seeing some pretty heavy nerfs. It's down from like 55% Starfall damage down to 20. You get 20% Starfall radius, but then you still get the movement while casting inside of Starfall. Do we think the movement should be gated behind Starfall, or do we think this is like a problematic design as a whole? Personally,
it should be.
Yeah, I don't think it should be. I think it's like
it definitely shouldn't be gated behind Starfall. Just like hurts our movement overall. It doesn't bring anything. It's just a bad way of thinking about our movement. Like gating it behind Starfall is just so bad for our single target and overall our movement.
Yeah, I think
like
it's super clunky,
forcing us to like casting it on single target is bad.
Yeah, I think it's super dumb, because when you have, like, I mean, they force you. First of all, they give you movement on AoE. That's basically what they do. They give you movement on AoE, and then they only give the movement like inside a circle, and they don't do anything for single target. The single target, we just have no movement in that regard because of this. I think that's stupid. Although I think they can also just remove this talent and add something more interesting, and I think we're still fine with movement. I think the talent is not necessarily needed, and I don't necessarily think we need more movement, but.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then Twin Moon. So Twin Moon is bringing back LATC. Obviously, this is like less for pre-patch, more for like Battle for Azeroth specific stuff. I personally think this is like a really good change. This is what we were all really hoping for. Just due in part because it takes so long to moonfire like a pack of mobs in Mythic Plus, or moonfire like, I don't know, like 5, 6, 7 mobs like in a raid. It takes a lot of time. So this talent coming back is pretty happy. And then Stellar Flare, they changed that to be less of a builder, more of a spender. Or not the other way around. Less of a spender, more of a builder. It now generates 8 AP. It's still a dot. Are we happy with the balance of this row? It's all like multi-target row, even though like some of them, like Stellar Drift and Stellar Flare, really get kind of outclassed by Twin Moon just as a whole, but this row is like really weak, but it just has a lot of quality of life on it. Do we think that this is like a good row, or do we think it's like more of a bad row, or like, what are we thinking?
This is like a really funny row in my eyes, because it's the same issue as the row above. They all feel like basically the same role. I really love Twin Moons. Like, that's, if I could choose, I would always pick Twin Moons.
Mm-hmm. I mean, don't worry, you can.
Yeah, I know, but in general, I think all these talents are bad, and I don't think it should be a level 90 row. I've never liked Stellar Flare. I still don't like Stellar Flare, even though it's a builder now. I think it's better as a builder, and I think I hope we can see some use of it, but I'm scared that we won't. And yeah, Stellar Drift, I think that's just a bad talent design. I think Stellar Drift should not be there.
So I think the thought process whenever they were approaching this row was like they didn't like us falling into ruts of builds. So like in Legion, you would just take Star-Lord all the time, right? Star-Lord all the time on single target, Blessing of the Ancients all the time on single target, Incarn all the time on single target. Like, except for like whenever you're playing Dad build, I guess, right? And then Stellar Drift, like all the time on single target because you're just wearing bracers, right? And that's just all you ever played on single target. There was no real choice. And then on AoE, it was just always Warrior Valoon, always Soul of the Forest, always Shooting Stars, always Stellar Drift again. And it's like you never really had an option, right? Now you actually have options, but
You don't have options.
Yeah, but
You literally don't have options. One's going to be better, and that's what you're going to play. That's what, and because all the pros play it, all the whole community is going to play it because of that. Even though it's only like 0.5% better.
Yeah, no.
So I think you don't have an option at all. I think it's a bad way of thinking, and I think they should just have talents do different things. So you pick them in different situations, and then yes, you play the same thing in those situations. But I think that's way more healthy than what they do right now.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree because like I think falling into those builds is like not great, but at the same time not having a not having a choice of the roads. Like it's only being indicated off like what sims the highest is not good either, because realistically we're always going to take Twin Moons. Realistically, more often than not you're going to take Incarn over anything else in that row. Like unless you're literally playing against sustained AoE, you're going to take like I mean Soul of Force barely sims like sims higher on 5 targets sustained, and then Starlord sims like barely higher on Patchwork. So if you ever have downtime on the boss, Incarn's instantly better, right?
That's kind of what the problem is, because of these talents right now. What's better on single target is also better on AoE.
Yeah,
and I think that's
no,
even
it's all a mess.
Because they put them in the same thing and they made them do the same thing to add more choices, so they're all the same. They actually made us play the same talents on every single situation, and I think that's even like a side effect that's even worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like how would you like remap the talents, like move Twin Moon, like move Twin Moon back, move Twin Moon back with, I don't even know what you'd swap it with, Starlord, I guess, right? You'd swap Twin Moon and Starlord, like is that the I think that's like the only option, right?
Yeah.
But I even think that wouldn't like change anything.
Yeah,
I don't think it would
because even those talents are the same. Like I literally think they need to rework talents to fix it, because I think the talents they created are just really bad.
Okay.
Because all the talents do everything.
Do you think Moonkin should have gotten a full rework as opposed to like this minor rework that we got? I mean,
No, I know. I think the minor rework is fine. I think they should have just changed more. Like I think the base kit is fine. I think that they should have changed the talents a lot more.
Okay.
And they tried, but I think they changed them in the wrong direction. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. No. I see.
So I think the amount of change is fine. Just the wrong changes is what I mean.
And the worst row possible: Shooting Stars, Fury of Elune, and New Moon.
You mean I love this row?
I love talenting Fury of Elune for every situation too. Thank you.
Like,
yeah. Like
right.
what is that? This row is okay. So Shooting Stars has been nerfed from 4 astral power per tick to 2. So you only take this on 4 targets sustained. Like you no longer take it on any hybrid fight. Fury of Elune is 0.3% behind New Moon on Patchwork single target. It's a 1-minute cooldown, so you don't have to worry about like maintaining it. There's no casting involved. There's no thinking involved. You literally just drop it and you go. So like realistically, you're always taking that. And then New Moon is just like lackluster damage wise. I mean, it could be good eventually, but I don't know. There's a lot.
I think this is the best row they've created. I'm not joking. Like I think this is the best row they've created. They just fucked up the tuning. They could just easily make New Moon by far the best single target, Fury of Elune by far the best on stacked AoE, and Shooting Stars by far the best on spread AoE. Mm-hmm. But they didn't.
Okay, so realistically, I think Shooting Star should be also taken in hybrid fights, and then Fury of Elune be your burst ability window, like ability, and then New Moon should obviously be like for single target, right? I think that's like a reasonable thing to expect. But how it's tuned right now, they hate Shooting Stars. I think just from like the eye test, they hate how Shooting Stars functions because they don't like AoE to single target generators, but at the same time we have to have them for certain situations. Which I don't know. I don't even know how to address. I'm not gonna lie. It's all wonky.
I mean, like I said, I think this is the only row they actually succeeded with, but then they fucked it up. So
yeah, all the talents actually do different things in this row. It's just tuning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I like playing Fury of Elune. I think it's pretty fun.
Me too. I love Fury of Elune. Like, I'm not complaining because it's just
a lot of fun.
Nice.
Okay.
Good, like,
underrated. Fury of Elune's rework was really, really, really good.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. I loved it. The moment I saw it, I was like, this is sick. Old Fury of Elune was the most garbage shit they created. But this shit is actually good.
Like, old Fury of Elune. Okay, so anything that takes 100% of your resources for an extended period of time and converts it into damage is like a really bad design, I think. I
don't know, it kind of worked with breath. So, on DKs.
I mean, they're melee. I think that's
Yes.
that's the discrepancy is their melee.
Yes, yeah. Like I think they should have made more fail safes for Moonkin, and I
Yeah.
think it could have
Yeah.
worked. Or made it more bursty and not that you had to keep it up as long as possible, but make it so you had to keep it up for like 15 seconds.
I
or
mean,
whatever.
does more damage initially and then like starts falling off later on.
That's like, but I mean, at least the way it was, it couldn't work ever. Like the whole talent was a fail. They had to change it. So I'm happy they did, and I'm
Yeah.
happy they did it in a good way.
That makes sense. All right.
Mhm.
So now we got QA. I think since the stream went down, this might not work out because I don't know how many people we got watching. We'll field questions in the chat. So first off, we'll start off with like our thoughts. So are we happy with balance? Are we excited to play Moonkin and BFA? What are you guys all thinking? Colix, what are you thinking right now?
I'm probably not gonna main Moonkin in VFA, but that's mainly because that's not really my decision. It's just because I kind of got forced into playing something else because I'm like they want me to be always in the raid, and they don't think a Boomkin will always be in the raid in like the top 1% of rating. So because the chance that Boomkin will not be the best is higher than the chance of a rogue not like being the best. So that's why I'm not playing it. I think I would love to play it, and I wish I could play it. And I do like it, and do think it is going to be viable. Yeah, that's about it.
I think they're mostly some tuning issues currently. I'm fine with what we achieved with the Boomy in BFA. It could be a bit better, depends on tuning, but I'm probably going to main it.
Yeah, for the last minute rework we got, I feel like we did a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with
Yeah,
it. I'm personally looking forward to playing it. It looks decently fun, but especially by comparison to like all the other classes.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm definitely gonna play like the shit out of it, even as a second character. So I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm gonna love Moonkin. I think the rework is great, and I'm very excited to play it. But yeah, it has too much weaknesses to be like the best.
We got a question. So, what legendaries will we pick on pre-patch? What talents would we run in Untours?
Okay, so
You just read the tooltip, and you know.
So realistically, you're gonna play Safuz and LATC for almost everything. So Safuz right now, proccable or not, this is insane. It gives you so much value just because the haste and just the pure stats on the ring. It's insanely good because of the multiplicative haste. Additionally, Lady and the Child fills a shoulder slot, which intellect is a really high value. So these two will be played on almost everything. So any hybrid fight, any time that you ever have a second target, Promises of Elune is slightly worse than Lady and the Child, right? So on pure patchwork fights, you would play Promises of Elune and Safuz, but these never happen because missing casts devalues Promises of Elune, whereas it doesn't devalue Safuz and LATC. So you're always going to play Safuz and LATC. As for AoE, there is merit for you playing Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish if you can't proc Safuz. But if you can't proc Safuz on AoE, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to. Like realistically, all the mobs that typically come in like an AoE fashion are able to be that you're able to proc Safuz on. So I don't know. As for talent wise, so single target, you're gonna be playing like this is like a recommendation. This isn't like what Sims are this is what Shims are showing, but this is also a recommendation in terms of like practicality. So like Force of Nature is like really good, except for you play Warrior of Elune during hybrid fights. Incarn is like really strong. You play Soul Starlord on like pure patchwork single target fights, but realistically you're just gonna play Incarn on like almost everything. You're gonna play Twin Moon or Stellar Drift on almost anything. Stellar Drift if it's sustained AoE for like a long period of time, and you're star falling, so like 3 targets plus sustained. So I can't think of a fight in Antorus that's 3 targets sustained for most of it. Maybe.
I mean,
Ionar? I don't even think on high command it's sustained long enough.
No. I wasn't gonna
Definitely
say.
not an eye.
I was gonna say Portal Keeper, but I mean.
It's not sustained long enough there either.
Yeah.
So Ionar maybe?
I mean, you can ask some Koreans and they will.
Yeah, no. And then tier 100, you're just always talented Fury of Elune unless it's like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
unless you
command
really
is
like
great.
moons, I guess, right?
To be honest, I think on high command you would use it in a lot of guilds, in a lot of situations where not everyone is whoring. because I mean, you could if you could.
You
farm.
could. You definitely could. Yeah. If it's
But
going to be worth it, I don't know. Depends on your
I
build.
mean, it's definitely not worth it. But I mean,
yeah.
I think that a lot of people will play it and will get highest ranks with it, obviously.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, that's just padding. That's just so stupid. Like, really.
I
stupid.
mean, you gotta like listen to the audience, man. They love padding. So.
So if they got rid of the affinity talent row, okay. So we got another question. If they got rid of the affinity talent row, what would be 3 good talents to fill their place? I don't know. Nature's Vigil, Ursul's
Probably.
Vortex.
Probably
no,
some utility or defensive row.
Oh, defensive.
Mark of the Wild. I mean.
Oh,
I
okay.
guess
okay.
I would
Heart
think
of the
of
Wild. Like,
Mark of the Wild, Nature's
no,
Vigil.
Heart of the Wild. Like Heart of the Wild.
Yeah, Heart of the Wild, Nature's Vigil, and then something else. What else?
Displacer Beast.
Tranquility.
No, please.
We're talenting Tranquility. Okay. Question for Colix. How many Boomkins is too many in a guild?
As main? What
yes.
rank? What are you like aiming for?
Top 30 world.
Top 30 world. I'd say 2 is like the good amount.
Yeah, I agree. 2 is.
I wouldn't go more than 2. Like I think 2 is fine. I think if you go more than 2, you're like you can get fucked completely. I think 2 will always be fine. I think even if Boomkin is not the best, and even if Boomkin is not the second best, it's gonna be okay. If you have 3 and Boomkin is like not the second best, you're like, why didn't I play mage?
Too many.
Yeah, what kind of guild has 3 Moonkins?
Yeah, fucking retards.
Yeah, I don't know. No clue.
Dude, all of our
Stack
guilds.
the deck, boys.
no-
Stack the deck.
Stack the Deck has 35 players. Don't
Stack
talk
the Deck?
shit.
Oh.
So what do we think about parses and... Oh, dog barking. Okay, so what do we think about... Holy shit. Colix, tell me what you think about parsing.
Oh.
About
my
parsing, that's an interesting question. I think I personally don't really care about parsing. I think parsing on like single target is fun. I think parsing, I think looking at logs and trying to do what's optimal to kill a boss in time with the least amount of wipes. I think that's fun. So you can like you're still kind of parsing, but you're like parsing so it doesn't hurt anyone else. It's just positive. I think parsing just to the highest damage. I think that's pretty annoying. I don't like when I have people around me that do that. I however understand that people like it, and I do like. I mean, it's whatever. Do what you want, but don't be in my guild if you do it. That's all I'm
Don't
gonna
be in my guild, he says.
Oh, damn.
So,
Yeah, I can see what Colix is saying. I definitely agree. If you end up wiping because someone is trying to pass, that just tilts everyone. That's bad.
mhm.
But if you're like trying to just output the highest possible damage, like min-maxing on the fullest on like single target fight, I think that's
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So what do you guys think about private logging? So as 3 people who private log, I'm the only one who doesn't. I personally like public logging. I think it gives people competition during farm, but you guys, I know, share different opinions. So what do you think about public logging as a whole?
I think the biggest reason we all 3 private log is just because we're in a high-end guild. So like, there's quite a lot of like tension between guilds. There's quite a lot of poaching going on. There's like people get forced into like playing like retarded. Well, not forced, but people like tend to play retarded if they can public log. People also tend to not want to do certain tasks when you public log. So in general, I think the raid atmosphere is better if you just private log. So people will just do their jobs, just get the raid done, get your money, and like go on with your day.
Yeah, people in high-end guilds, we normally just we're there to kill the bosses and then leave. We don't really want to do anything more than that, so we just private log just to get it over with as fast as we can.
Okay.
we're just private logging.
I mean, what do you think about private logging farm though? I mean, I feel like public logging helps create.
That's
like...
no. Like my question, the answer I gave was for private logging farm.
Oh, okay.
Progression is
Yeah,
all
that
different.
was for farm.
Oh, okay.
Like progression is, I think, it's obvious for
I think
everyone why
yeah,
you
I
private
know.
log progression.
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
How does AK kill
People
bosses so fast?
don't want to spend longer than they have to on farm.
What just happened? We just have a big picture of Soreanan now. Nick, what did you do?
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm back. My Discord died.
Alright, I think we'll probably call it there.
What?
I appreciate
someone asked about padding like on progression versus padding on farm.
padding
and I
on
think
progression.
Yeah, like I mean, I think that's
Awful
like, a very-
idea.
Yeah.
the answer I gave was for padding on farm. That's the same reason why private logging on progression I didn't even answer because it's just so retarded if you pad on progression. So I mean, you're an idiot if you do it. And please, I wouldn't say carry yourself, but I mean,
Oh
you might
wait,
as well.
wait, that's toxic. Stop that.
I mean, I don't want to see such people in my guild.
I don't. Please don't apply to AK Guild.
So, we got a question for Mythic Plus. Will we likely default to Tettles or will we swap to Soul or Stellar? I'm just asking you, Tettles, because
I think
you
generally
probably do the
speaking-
most Mythic Plus.
So personally, I think
You wouldn't
take,
swap to sweat it.
I think you would take Force of Nature. Like realistically, like Warrior of Elune is not that much of a damage gain. Like, what is this? So realistically, Force of Nature is not that like much of a damage loss compared to Warrior of Elune. So I think you probably will take Force of Nature in almost all situations in Mythic Plus. But aside from that, I think you're always going to take Incarn Twin Moon and Fury of Elune as it currently stands. This might change in the future depending on tuning, right? Because Shooting Stars could be really good. Stellar Drift, I can't see a world where you don't want to take Twin Moon on Mythic Plus because like you're running pack to pack to pack to pack and you're dotting up mobs, and additionally Twin Moon actually gives you single target damage benefit as opposed to Stellar Drift, which just does not give you any single target damage benefit. At the end of the day, like some of those questions comes down to tuning because the talents themselves are all, I think a lot of them are improperly tuned in my personal opinion, and there are unimpactful changes too. Like there are unimpactful choices like Stellar Drift versus Twin Moon. Okay, it's like okay, I'm choosing the exact same thing. It's like which one does more damage realistically. Do you guys have anything to say about Mythic Plus? Do you guys know anything about Mythic Plus?
Nope.
What was the
I
question?
think you're right.
Are you what are you gonna? It's like it was essentially like what are you gonna play? Do you think that there is any real choice in what we're playing? And the answer is not really.
I agree. There will never be a choice. Like there might be a choice that in this dungeon you play this and that dungeon you play that, but even there I think it's very limited.
Realistically, only the tier 15 row has a choice of what you're gonna play because Nature's Balance could be good depending on downtime in between packs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, depending on, I easily see Incarnation of being the best. I mean,
yeah, no. It's tuned right now to where Incarn is just way better for hybrid fights.
Yeah,
and
but
it's
exactly. But
highly competitive on single target. So it's like, all right, I'm playing that, right?
And I don't see a world where you wouldn't run Twin Moons, and I don't see a world where you wouldn't run Fury of Elune.
What form of movement do you hope they add for us just to help us cast and move? So personally, I think they should. I think they should delete it from Stellar Drift. I think they should delete movement while casting from Stellar Drift, and then I don't know. I would like a movement while casting piece instead of Tiger's Dash or Renewal.
I have the perfect option. Like every single time you Star Search, you can move for 3 seconds.
You can move for 3 seconds? Hold on, I'm processing.
That sounds like a D to me.
Alright, sounds good to me, dude. I'm down with it. I'll sign off.
Yeah.
Go.
Alright.
Got the Tettles approval.
Alright, cool. And I think that'll be it for today. This should be uploaded to YouTube probably tomorrow or the day after. I'm sorry for going down in the middle of this.
It's gonna be fun, like re-uploading. Like
no, I can just split it and re-upload it. It'll be pretty easy. I appreciate everybody who came out. I think we might try to do the next one live too, except I won't be in Atlanta. I'll be back home in Missouri. When will I be replacing my modem? I'm not replacing my modem. My dad disconnected my internet because he was like, he saw I was on the wrong router or something. He just unplugged my connection.
We are probably replacing you with yours.
Oh, what the All right.
Excuse me.
Actually,
Using
no,
out of
not
bounds.
good. I can't let the meme die. So
All right. We're still a 24 out of 24 class. Thanks for everybody coming out.